We have two craps players here. They're both playing the 3-point molly with maximum odds, but one of them will keep their odds working during comeout rolls and the other won't. Which one will win or lose more money? And how will the two styles of play affect the house edge? Let's find out. First of all, it's not going to be helpful to compare just two players to each other. Craps has so much randomness that it wouldn't be a valid comparison. Instead, I programmed 100,000 bots to play each strategy. They're playing at the same table with the same dice throws, and they'll stop at the exact same time. The two groups of bots experience nearly identical win and loss rates. 44% of both groups won money. On average, the standard players won $1,923, while the bots that kept their bets always working won over $2,000. 55% of both groups lost money, and on average, they lost $1,626 with standard play and almost $1,700 when working the odds. Just under 1% broke even. It looks like the wins and losses are amplified when working the odds, but that's not the whole story. Before we get into all of that though, let's first understand what it actually means to work the odds. These bots are playing the 3-point molly with $50 units. That means they'll try to cover 3 numbers using a pass line and 2 come bets. Whenever those base bets are established on a point, these bots lay maximum odds. That's 3 times their pass line bet or $150 for the 4 and 10, 4 times their pass line bet for the 5 and 9, and 5 times the pass line bet for the 6 and 8. The difference in their play comes in after a shooter hits the point. The puck goes off, but any established come bets and their odds are still on the table. Whenever this happens, come bets are always working. You can't call them off or pull them down, and we're gonna see why the house keeps it that way later in the video. By default, come bet odds are not working, so when the come bet wins or loses, the odds are just returned to you. They're never actually at risk on that comeout roll. But players have the option to tell the dealer to keep their bets working. Is it a good idea to do that? Well, that's a personal question, and I want you to have the data so that you can decide for yourself. This video was prioritized by Daryl, and I'm glad he did. This is one of the first strategies I ever played, although I was playing at a much lower level and with just single odds. And at the time, I did work my bets. I was always curious what difference it made. We'll start off by looking at the distribution of the amounts won or lost by the bots that are playing the default way. That's the one where the odds are not working on the comeout roll. The most lost was $6,400, and the most won was $12,650. The median is $300 lost, and the average is only $50 lost. These values tend to diverge on the 3-point molly, and that's because these extreme wins pull the average up. The range between the 25th and 75th percentiles represent the middle 50% of outcomes, and the range between the 5th and 95th percentiles is the middle 90% of outcomes because it's really just chopping off that 5% on either side. These are more typical outcomes that you would be likely to experience when you're playing at a real casino. Here's the distribution from bots that kept their bets working. The minimum is the same, it's still $6,400, but the maximum has increased to $13,250. The median is also the same, but the average has changed by just a few dollars. Most of the other quantiles have changed as well, and I'll compare them on the next screen. When we look at the outcomes side by side, notice that the always working bots show slightly bigger losses and slightly bigger wins. Only the minimum and the medians are the same. I expected this because the additional action means more variance and therefore a wider range of outcomes. The difference in the averages is about 5%. Next, let's see how exactly the bots won and lost their money. Here I break down the specific bets and how much they contributed to the outcomes. This is new for this particular video. In both cases, 10% of all the wins came from the pass line bets, but it's different for the pass line odds. The default bots won 34% of their wins on that bet, but the odds account for only 32% of the always working group's wins. Why is that? The reason is because there's more money won on the come odds bet. For example, the wins on the 6 and 8 accounted for 9% by default, then 10% when those bets are always working. When more money is down in this lower area, that means as a percentage, there's a little bit less on those pass line odds. And why does pass line odds account for so much more than the others? That's because the bots place pass line odds for every single shooter. Once the point is set, the odds go up. But that doesn't always happen with the come bets. Many shooters don't last all that long, so there isn't an opportunity to get both those come bets into position. And because they're not in position all the time, they're not contributing as much to the wins and losses. Later in the video, I'll show you the breakdown of how many rolls it took the bots to turn a profit. That way you can get a better sense of how the length of the rolls affects the win rates. By the way, I make these videos because the first time I played the game, I felt like I didn't have a lot of information on what I could really win or lose and what it might cost me to play the game. But there's so much more to explore beyond what I can cover in a short YouTube video. So I'm building a website called DiceData ThinkTank, and that's where I'm posting the results for all the simulations that I don't have time to make videos for. It's not launched yet. I'm planning to have it up in the next couple weeks, but I want to get you on the wait list so that I can send you a survey. I have so many ideas, and I need your help to focus on what would be most interesting to all of you. Thanks so much. I really appreciate the help. Let's look at the bankroll. This tracks every wager that the bots make and whether that wager came from new money or from previous wins. For example, the minimum outlay for both is $50, and that's because when they started their session, they had to take $50 out of their pocket to make that first pass line bet. These bots got really lucky. They made enough off that first $50 bet to place their next bets and the ones after and so on, so they never had to outlay any additional funds. The most any of the bots outlaid was $6,500. At the 5th percentile, the always working bots were in for about one additional $50 unit, and that holds until the 75th percentile, where the difference is about $100, and it's not until the 99th percentile that the difference goes to $150. So what does this mean to all of you? If you're just playing a 10-shooter session, you're probably going to outlay about one extra unit if you keep your odds working on the come bets. But generally, we don't play for exactly 10 shooters, so here I have it averaged out by hour for a couple of different table speeds. That way, depending on how long you like to play, you can figure out how much money you might need to bring to the table. Now let's see how many rolls a shooter has to throw for the bots to turn a profit. This one surprised me. I found it a little bit counterintuitive. Why does this matter? With the 3-point molly, we know that the longer a shooter can hang on to the dice, the more money the player is likely to make. Look at this chart, for example. The x-axis is the number of rolls, and the y-axis is the amount won or lost for the session. There's a strong correlation. More rolls equals more money won. How many rolls does it take for our bots to make money? These tables tell us the story. The first 3 columns tell us how often the shooters make it to that roll. This is essentially going to be the same no matter the strategy. It's a feature of the rules of the game of craps. These columns show us the bankrolls that the bots had after that roll. And here we can see the percent of bots that are in profit plus the combined percent that both made it this far and are in profit. I like to check out the point where over 50% of the bots are in profit. For the bots playing the standard way, that's at roll 8. For the bots keeping their odds working, it's roll 9. What about the number of rolls for over 90% of the bots to be in profit? Now it's 16 rolls versus 18 rolls. Why does it take longer on average to get to profit when the bots are working the odds bet? Here's what's going on. The odds bets are fair bets in that they pay fairly according to the odds of the dice, but they're still more likely to lose than win. On this table, I have every bet resolved and how often they won. The odds on the 4 only win 33% of the time, and they lose 66%. That's 2 to 1 against. That's why it pays so much. The odds are less severe on the 5, 6, 8, and 9, but you're still more likely to lose those bets than you are to win them. And ultimately, the bots that work their bets need to overcome this disadvantage, and they do that with shooters who throw for longer. But remember, that's just an average. Anything can happen in a single session. In a way, you could say that this is a disadvantage for the working bots. But next, we're going to look at the house edge. Working the bets is going to take an already low house edge and shave a few more percentage points off of it. The default bots bet just over $1 billion, and the always working bots bet just about $1.15 billion in total. The working bots also had more money both won and lost, and the house take is almost $300,000 higher. But the house edge comes out lower, 0.47% versus 0.459%. So working your bets does reduce the house edge, maybe not by a huge amount, but it is lower. Also remember, these bots played for the exact same roles and the same length of time. So the house made more money with the same effort, even though their edge was just a little bit lower. I found this fascinating. It really illuminated how I think about the house edge and how I think about how much money is at risk. So let me ask you, do you keep your odds working on the comeout rolls? And did this analysis change your opinion at all? Let me know in the comments because I geeked out on this one and I am super interested to hear your thoughts. As always, take care and good luck at the tables.